If you want to skip the basic stuff, here's the time codes for all of the topics in this video. This video, I'm going to be talking about building worlds in AltspaceVR using Unity. If you don't know what Altspace is, I suggest you go check it out if you're interested in the future of discourse on virtual reality. Altspace is a freely available cross-platform metaverse for virtual reality meetups, hangouts, presentations, art performances, lectures, what have you. I recently attended an international summit on virtual reality, and it was one of the most amazing experiences I'd had to date. And I think it's going to be a component going forward in the future in a lot of different conferences and summits and stuff, that there's going to be at least a virtual-facing component to the presentations so that people can engage in the conversation and benefit from the collective value of the summit without actually having to go. Which I'll tell you, the going to the conference part is my least favorite part of going to the conference. So let's take a look at what is an Altspace world, and then we'll talk about world building. An Altspace world is actually 2 or 3 different layers of data that come streaming down off of a server. So the information has to be packaged up in a particular way that Altspace can manage. Also, there's security reasons for them putting the restrictions on it the way they do, but that's okay. Everything is perfectly reasonable, and there's a pretty straightforward way that end users can modify their worlds, add to their worlds, create entire new worlds. But a world in Altspace is actually based on at least 2 different layers, right? So we've got the template layer. The template is the actual world itself, right? It's the skybox, the lighting, the base geometry. And once the template is created, an end user can't really modify that. They can add to that by adding their artifacts. So artifacts are objects that come from kits. So you'll see things called kits in there, and a kit has a bunch of objects in it. And then there's some SDK/MRE, and MRE is not a meal ready to eat. MRE is a mixed reality extension. It's sort of a WebGL-based interactive object. So if I have something that wants to have some sort of behavioral functionality, if I want something that has to do any kind of logic or any kind of scripting, then it has to be done through an SDK or MRE object. And that's a completely different ball of wax. In fact, templates and objects are significantly different enough that you probably want to take them as different tasks, trying to figure out how to work with them. So to get started with building a world in Altspace, and this is my world in Altspace, and there's my hands. When you're using something like the Quest, you get 2 sets of controllers, and by default, the user is not enabled, worlds are not enabled for the default user by default. So it's the kind of thing that you want to have to turn on yourself. And here I am looking around my little world. Everybody gets one. To turn on worlds, you go to the menu, and you'll see that you've got this panel on Discover and Events, and there's people you may know, and what you were looking for is under Settings. So under Settings, under General, you'll see the Enable Worlds Beta. And you want to turn that on. It's off by default. Once you turn it on, it stays on. But as soon as you turn it on, you get this extra Worlds tab, and they make sure you know that all of this functionality is beta. Beta, beta, beta. So that means it may change, but it also means that your mileage may vary. Performance could be unpredictable. Across the top, you see popular favorites. The worlds you create are going to show up under my worlds. So there's the 4 that I've made so far. And that's all you can do here. I can go to this world. I can use these worlds to host an event. And once I'm in here, I can modify these worlds. But if I want to create a new world, then I have to get out to the web page to do that. As soon as I enable the world's beta, I see this new worlds tab show up here. And it brings up this other editor that I can use to create objects like this chair that I've got here. And it gives you this interface where I can see all the objects that I've added to the scene, and I can turn them on or off, or move them around or delete it. And I've got different categories of objects that are available to me. So like right now I'm messing around with the skybox, and if I select any of these skyboxes, look back there in the background, you see the sky changed in my home world. So when you go into a world, you can change the skybox, assuming it's a world you create or that somebody's giving you authority to modify. That is something that you can do with these worlds, is that I can, not only can I make them public, but I can allow other users, say friends of mine or people that I'm working with, I can give them authority over the world to make changes to it. Add objects, move objects, delete objects, that sort of stuff. So I look under the list of Altspace kits, and these are kits that are provided by Altspace themselves. The feature kits are kits that are created by the community that the Altspace devs have decided to promote because of their quality and their reliability. A lot of times it's real easy for me to create something that I could bring into Altspace that's totally going to break my world. So in this case, I've created a little fireplace, and once the fireplace is spawned in, it fits inside that little cube there. And I can grab it with one of my controllers and manipulate it, move it around, and I scale it with the thumbsticks and move it around in the world with the thumbstick. So I get it the right size, put it in the right place, and then I hit that little padlock there to lock it in place. And now I'm going to be looking for something to put in the fireplace. Under the campfire kit, it seems reasonable that there would be a fire. It seems reasonable that there would be a fire. Alas, there's not. So I look under featured kits. Oh, and here I find a nice fire asset that I can use. And I grab the fire and I move it around, and I'm using that little white cube to sort of judge the size and tell when it goes inside the fireplace. And I click on the padlock to lock it in place. Close that menu for a second. Oh, and I notice that my fire is too small and a little too high. So I want it bigger and down lower into the wood so I can unlock it, and that exposes that grip again, that cube that I can use to move things around. And I grab it, I use the thumbstick to scale it up and sort of move it down, so now it looks like the fire is coming from down inside the wood. Oh, and there's my little fireplace. Let's look at creating a world from scratch using the Altspace provided assets and templates. First thing you do is you come over to Altspace and you log into your account, and when you go to the Altspace page, and right here I'm looking at a bunch of events that are coming up here in a few hours, I come up here to this More button, and if I've entered the world's beta, then I'll see this option to go to Worlds. It'll take me to this link, where I can see the worlds that are available, and I can enter, if I've got the desktop PC version, I can enter any of these worlds here that I want. And a lot of times that's what I'll do, is I'll hop in with the just the PC client to test some stuff out and take a look at it, see how it's looking. If I come over here to my worlds, I see the same menu that I had, except now through the website I see something that I didn't have available to me in game. I see that I have universes. So I look here, here's my my home. This is the place where I spawn into. And then I've created a universe here. As soon as you start creating worlds in Altspace, it's going to create a universe for you. So I open up that universe. You can think of the universe as the container of all your worlds, and you can actually have multiple universes. But inside the worlds of Karn, I have the worlds that I've created up here at the top. Down here on the side, I have the option to create a new world, and this is where the world is created. So I'll call this world Tutorial World. It's a world to give tutorials in, or I'm going to use it for a tutorial. And then this image is one that I can use to replace this top banner image. I can tell if I want it private or unlisted. Some of these different things down here, I'm probably not going to go into. They get kind of deep. We've got some additional options. Default contextual roles. These are things that I can, it's authority that I can give everybody that comes into my world. So if I want my world set up so that everybody can be able to fly in it, I can type in the word pilot in here. If I want everybody to be able to, I think I spelled terraformer wrong, but if I want everybody to be able to modify the world, I can make everybody an admin, or I can make everybody a terraformer, or I can make everybody whatever I want. In this case, everybody's going to be able to fly, or if I want just the standard setup, I can just leave it alone. Then when the other thing I need is to pick a template. Really can't make a world without a template. This one right here, it says cool sky, is really just an empty world. So if you want the closest thing you can get to an empty world, I'd start with this one. However, some of these other featured templates are really nice. Maybe I'm just putting together an event and I want to dress up one of these templates a little bit. So we've got presentation pages, panels, podcasts, movie theaters, anything that you want. City Park is a pretty nice starting template, so we'll start with City Park as the basis of our template. And then I go to Create World, and my world is successfully created. If I click Enter Now, it's going to prompt me to start Altspace. The other thing that I can do is I can copy this link. So anybody that has this link up here, I can share my world with them or promote it or however. So I've used the web space to create my world. Now I have to go back into Altspace to actually do anything with it. So here we are back in my home environment. Come over to my menu, go to my worlds, go to my worlds, and I see the new world that I've created. I click on enter and it takes me into my new world. And here we are. There's not a whole lot to see to this. But I can start changing things like the skybox. Maybe I want to start building some urban environments around it. Now a lot of these things like the city blocks, like the apartment and stuff, it's going to come in aligned with however I'm standing. And one of the things that's difficult to do in Altspace is get these things lined up, because if I grab this thing and I start moving it around, sometimes my parallax view is going to make it difficult for me to see it. I've got this lock rotation button over here. I can click on that, and now I can only move the object. I don't rotate it, and that's great if all I want to do is size and place it. But sometimes the rotation is a little bit off. So what I can do is I can come up here and click on this little gear icon, which is going to bring me up this menu that shows me my transform. So just like everything else in a 3D application, all of these Altspace objects have position, rotation, and scale. In this case, I can change the X and Y and Z values for my position, my rotation. My scale is only a single float. But in this update artifact dialog, I can also change its name here if I want to. But I can bring up this dialog in this keyboard, and I can zero out all these rotation values and hit confirm. And now my building is at least aligned with the world. So if I've got it locked in rotation, now I can move it and I can size it to something that looks acceptable without worrying about how it aligns with the world. And then when I'm done with it, I lock it. And now, can I teleport on top of it? Yes, I can. And so now it's a process of just populating this world. If you've got flight turned on, it's a lot easier to sort of fly up. And if you're going to be making very large worlds, you want to give yourself lots of teleportable objects that I can teleport around to. See, it won't let me teleport way down into the bottom. And if I fall off, oh, I've got flight enabled, so I'm not going to fall. I can just go about adding kits from my city building and city environment kits. But the name of the video is how to use Unity to build Altspace worlds. So the first thing we need is Unity. So I've got Unity installed, a few different versions of Unity, and the first thing we're going to do is make our project. So we'll come over here to new, and if you've got more than one version of Unity installed, you want to make sure you're using the right one. The Altspace asset uploader is preferred to work with 2019.2. Now there's several different flavors of 2019.2, and I've had pretty good luck with different ones, but the best one, and the one that's recommended, is 2019.2.12. If you go to 2019.3 or anything more recent, the 2019.2, then with the current version of the uploader, what you'll get is an error message when you try to upload your work that you've got scripts in your file, and you don't have any scripts in your file. Altspace explicitly prohibits scripted behaviors being included in the asset bundles, and will reject any asset bundles that has anything extra in it. 2019.3 formats the asset bundles in a way that Altspace isn't expecting it to, so it'll reject any template, any object, any kit that is constructed with a more recent version of Unity than 2019.2. So you want to make sure that you're staying back on this version if you're going to be working with Altspace, at least for the next little while. The next version of the uploader may fix that. We'll have to see. So I'm going to make a new project for 2019.2.12. And I'm going to make it with just regular 3D. I don't need the 3D with extras. I don't need the lightweight, the universal, the high res, the universal rendering pipeline, whatever they're coming up with. Just straight up 3D is what you want to use. So I'll create that project, and we'll let Unity do its thing while we talk about the overall process. So we've enabled worlds. We've created a world from an existing template, and we've added objects from the world builder into that world. That's great. So now we're moving on into Unity. Once we have Unity set up and the project is set up, then we'll find and install the Unity uploader, install that into our Unity project, and then configure that to work with our online account. You have to sign into the Unity uploader just like you would sign into the web page or sign into the app. And then later on, we'll create a template, set up the Unity scene, build a template, and deploy it. So now we've got Unity set up, and I've downloaded some assets off the asset store. These specifically, so I'm using the Mega Fantasy Props pack. It's free. These guys did a really good job on it. It's some good looking models. They're fairly low polygon count, so that's important. One of the things that you want to remember is that one of the platforms that is supported by Altspace are mobile-based platforms. So the Go, the Quest, the Gear VR, they all run basically off of phones, kind of powerful phones, but they're running off of phones. So you need to design your world to be compatible with mobile applications. Now you will be able to build a version for the desktop and a version for mobile. And the mobile one should be a lot leaner than the desktop one. But if you wanted to, you could actually change the geometry between them, change the texture size, change the lighting, which might not be a bad idea. But basically, I want to be putting the consideration into my design that this is going to be viewed on a mobile device. So I don't want to go crazy with the textures. I don't want to go crazy with the polygon count. And it's certainly easy to do both of those. So to get set up in Unity, the first thing I need to do is download the actual asset package, the Unity uploader, which right now is at version 0.8.6. Once I get that downloaded, I go to Assets, and then I go to Import Package, Custom Package, and then I locate, probably in my Downloads folder or wherever I dropped it when I downloaded it, the uploader 0.8.6 Unity package. And since I've already got that installed, I'm not going to re-import it. But when you import that, then you see this AltspaceVR menu appear up here in your editor. Go to Build Settings, and the first thing you're going to be prompted with is you have to sign in with your username and password, or your email address and password. And then it shows you these buttons here. Load your templates, create new template, sign out. I've got a kit section. I've got some settings. But the template is where we're going to start with, because we have to do a template before we can do a completely custom world. So I'll load my templates. And I have an option here to create a new template. If I create a new template, it's going to take me right to the template creation page. So that's an easy thing to remember. There's a link to this template creation page right here in the uploader. And I'm going to call this template Medieval Farm. If I had an image that I wanted to use to replace this image, then I could go ahead and upload it. I can give it a description. Assuming I can spell medieval right, farm, any tags that I wanted to make this easier to find. Not right now. And then I go to create template. Now my template is created. If I come back over here to Unity and click load my templates, then the uploader actually goes out, hits a website, and looks and see, oh, here's a list of all the templates that I've created. This one is going to go into Medieval Farm. Now I've got options down here to build for Windows, build for Android. If I have both of them checked, then it will build for Windows, and then it will build for Android. And that's convenient. It'll put them both into one little package that I can upload at one time. It's really nice. With that being said, during part of this process, Unity has to reload all of the assets in the project. So if I've got a bloated project, let's say I've got a bunch of assets, a bunch of materials, a bunch of textures, but only using some of them in my scene, this can take a long time because it has to go through and re-import pretty much everything, trying to figure out what it needs for the next version of it. So, but before I build, I want to make sure of one thing. Most of the times when I import the Altspace builder, it goes ahead and it makes this setting for me. But in case it isn't, first thing I want to do is make sure, I'll go to build settings, make sure that I'm working with Android, because this setting only appears when the project setting is set to Android. So I'm set to Android. That's good, because the setting I'm looking for is go to my project settings, which you can get to under the edit tab. But there's my project settings, and then under player, and I want to go all the way down to XR settings. 2019.3, all of this changes. The XR settings interface has been deprecated. They've got a whole new way of doing XR in 2019.3, which is why you want to stay on 2019.2. But if I want my objects to appear in the Android side, then I have to come down here first. First of all, make sure that XR is checked. It should be checked, right? The asset package sets this setting when you import it, usually. Stereo rendering mode, I want that set to multi-view. Not multi-pass, not single pass, multi-view. Multi-view, at least in my experience, I don't know if it's a Unity thing or not, only shows up when the project is set for Android. if that's set, then we're good. That's really the only setting that we need to make sure of. Go back over to my Altspace build settings and click build and give it a location. Now it's going to want to call it template by default, template.zip. You can rename it anything you want. So I'm going to call it temple.farm. And save it. And now it's going to go through the process of actually compiling this scene twice. Now, one of the things that you'll notice over here is when it does that, it takes all of the objects in the scene and it puts it under one object called environment. I didn't create this. It just put them all on. Everything's under there. All my objects, my directional light, even the terrain that I created gets put into the environment. I'm not sure right now what the limitations are on what the asset package is going to be able to handle or not. I know it goes through and it deletes all the cameras. So there's no cameras in the scene. There's no really any point in setting up a camera. It doesn't do any lighting once it gets to Altspace. So if I'm curious about any kind of lighting, or if I want any kind of lighting effects, all those lighting effects need to be baked in. That lighting data can dramatically increase the size of your asset bundle, though. It can also dramatically increase the way it looks. The only other tip I would have about this is to be patient. For any decent project size, building, re-importing, building again can take a while. So I'll be back when this little green bar is done crawling across this window. So my template is finished building, and I'm getting ready to upload it to the website, to the template that I've created. So I come over here to my web browser. Here's the template that I just created, Medieval Farm, and I go into edit. So after I've created it, I have to edit it again. Except this time, now I've got a zip button, and I go pick the zip file that was created, and then click Update Template. And this should take just a minute, depending on the size of the file, because first it has to upload to Altspace, and then Altspace is going to look at the contents, make sure that the asset bundles have the right name. So it's important to select the template that I'm looking for, because it builds that template name into the asset bundle when it builds. So Altspace is checking on that, checking to see if there are any scripts or anything in there that it can't have. It will reject the upload if there's anything wrong with it, but my template was successfully uploaded, and now I can make a world with it. So we go back over to worlds, and I'll go to my worlds, go into my universe, and then I can create a world with my new template. And if I look down here, there's my new template, and I'm going to call it Farm, because it's a farm. I select the template that I want to use. I can add some other stuff down here if I want to make everybody able to fly. That's fine. And then I go create world, and my world is successfully created. I can copy that link to this world, and I'm going to show you another way of getting into it. I'll bring up the AltspaceVR desktop client that uses the Windows side of things. A lot of times I'll check my templates with both the 2D client and something like the Oculus Quest, because that'll let me know how both sides, both builds are working. I want to make sure that regardless of whether or not my users come in on a desktop or in a Quest or Go, that they're going to be able to access it. All right, so I brought up a web browser inside of Altspace, and then I'm going to paste the link to my world into it, and then click the Enter Now button, and Altspace will take me to that world. And here is the world that I've just created. It has the Unity terrain, and I can teleport around in here and look at all the stuff. And this world is open and public, so anybody that wants to come in here can come in here and look at me looking down the well. Now we're going to build some objects that we can populate our world with. And to do that, we have to create a kit. When I open up the Altspace build settings and I go to the kit tab, it gives me an option here to create a new kit, which will open up the web page to create a new kit. Now, I've already created a kit called Farm Stuff. I've got a template called Medieval Farm, created a kit called Farm Stuff. And if I look at this number right here, this is really important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this number, or whatever number it generates, not this specific number, obviously, and come back over here to Unity. And I have to put it here in the kit folder name. So that has to be the prefix for all of for my kit name and for all of my objects that I'm going to put in my kit. And I'll add another descriptor to the end of that. So this is going to be the name of my kit. It needs to match up with the name of my kit on the web space. And now I can start adding stuff to this. The objects that I add all have to be prefabs. So I create my object, and then I create my prefab, and then I'm going to use that prefab to create the objects in my kit. Now my prefabs can be quite elaborate, and they can have animations built into them, and they can have a wide variety of Unity objects can be part of that prefab. The only thing that can't be in that prefab are scripts. So no behaviors, nothing that uses a behavior. Also no cameras. Don't put any cameras inside of your prefabs because probably won't work. So going through here to make some prefabs, I'm going to look in this Mega Fantasy Props pack because it's easier than modeling some stuff up. And there's a bunch of barrels here. So I'm going to drag all these barrels over, and they're already prefabs, so that's good. And I look at my scene, and in my scene I've already deleted the directional light and the camera. I don't need either one of those. Just the objects, all of them in here together. So I see I've got barrel and then barrel 1 through 5. So I've got a total of 6 barrels in here. Now I'm going to give them all the same prefix and give it a name. Select all of those and then come down here to convert game objects to kit prefab. Kit assets created. Now if I look over here under my assets tab, I'll see that I have a prefabs folder, and there's a new folder under my prefabs folder that has my kit asset name as well as all of the prefabs renamed with the appropriate kit asset prefix. Also creates a folder under that called screenshots, where it puts a handy little preview screenshot of all of my objects that I've built. I could do the same thing for fences. I'll drag these fence prefabs in here. I'll change the name of my the specific assets. I'm keeping the kit folder name the same. Now I'm changing the assets. Convert game objects to kit prefab. It goes through, makes some new prefabs. And now under my kit I have some fences added along with my barrels. That's enough to work with for now. I'm going to come down through here and select my farm stuff kit. I'm going to build the kit for Windows and build the kit for Androids, and I'm going to package up the generated screenshots. So they all should show up in my kit. Then I click the Load Kit Prefab Directories, and I'll see all of the folders under my prefabs folder that are suitable for building for kits. So I could have several kits working in the same project if I wanted to. I select which one I want and click on Build, and it's building the kits both for Android and for Windows. This is typically a quicker process than building the template. So I'm going to wait a few seconds. So now my kit has finished being built, and it's left this zip file with the kit prefix and then farm stuff and the name. So it's ready to be uploaded. I go over to the kit that was just created, and just like with the template, after I create it, I go in to edit it, and then I choose a zip file, and then update kit, and I wait for it to upload. 30%, 40%, 50, 90. Now it's uploaded. Waiting for Altspace to give me the green light that it's successfully used, and there it is. And so now I'm going to try out my kit in the Quest. So now I'm in Altspace. I'm going to go to my worlds. My worlds. Here's the farm space I've been working on. And here we are. And I can teleport around. And maybe this spot over here is a good place to put some barrels. I'll go to World Editor, go to Mine, see my kits. Here's my farm stuff kit, and here's my selection of barrels. And I click on one of them, and now I have a barrel that I can place. Maybe I'll put another barrel. And I'll bring it over here. Make it about the same size as the other one. Maybe I'll put a fence in here. Right up next to the house like that. And I can go around and start populating this world with all sorts of other objects. Now these objects have mesh colliders on them to prevent me from walking through them or teleporting through them. So they're good for use in, say, blocking off parts of my world that I don't want people to get into. Drop out of that. Let's look at a couple of things on the website to wrap up this video. So if I look at the kit after I've added this stuff to it, I see a list of all of the artifacts that are in that kit. So if I've got something in here that I know I don't like or is broken or something like that, I can individually remove these items from the kit without having to recompile and re-upload a new kit that's got some stuff in it. Also, if I upload a new kit that has exactly the same names for these objects, then it should overwrite those objects. A lot of times I've seen that if something's not exactly right, that it'll create a duplicate with the new object sitting right next to the old object. So it's been about 50-50 on me, for me so far. A lot of times I've had some problems with that. If I go into the farm world now and I look at objects, I see only the 3 objects that I've added from the kit. I can't make changes to the template that's inside the rest of the world. And the only thing that I can modify from here are the objects that I've added. Once again, this is really convenient because it's easy for me to get something out of a kit somewhere. Maybe somebody shared it with me, or probably it's something I built that's broken. And I put it in there and it completely drags down the world. I can delete it from here without having to mess with going into the world and finding the object and deleting it myself. It could be a case where what I've added to the world still works within the framework of Altspace, but the object is broken in some way. The textures are wrong or whatever. I can manage the objects in my world without actually having to go into the world. So that's pretty much it. We covered how to build your template, how to set up Unity, how to upload your template, how to create objects, and how to upload those objects. And you should be good. Go out there, build some worlds, make some stuff happen. I didn't talk a whole lot about lighting. That's kind of another issue itself. You want to bake your lighting, make sure that all your lights are baked in your template. And if you want the lighting in your world to affect the objects, then you have to have light probes and reflection probes in your world as well, appropriately spaced. That is going to tremendously increase the size of your template upload, the lighting data. I went a little bit overboard on what I made the other day. It's only got like 10,000 polygons in the whole world, but it's about 100 megabytes of light map data and light probe data. So it's a little big. Maybe I'll have a follow-up video where I look into the proper settings for those. Anyway, thanks for watching. Good luck. Happy world building. And